Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about the FlipBlinky app, which turns your FlipBoard and your Flipper Zero into a wearable badge. The FlipBoard ships with multiple different animations and different color combinations as well. In this video we're going to learn how to make our own animation sequence and how to choose our own colors. We'll also learn how to swap out the image that's shown here and even turn it into an animated image. You can press this first button to increase the speed of the animation, and you can use the second button to slow down the animation. One last feature that's nice is you can click these last two buttons together, and that will turn off the display, which is useful if you're at a conference and the talk's about to start. All right, let's get started. Okay, so in the FlipBoard app, there's FlipBoard, and when you launch that, it shows this name tag image. So the first thing we want to learn how to do is customize this name tag image. Currently in the application, there's no customization, so you have to actually change the code. I've installed FlipBlinky. It's copied into my applications_user in my official firmware. You can read the setup directions on how to do this. And then under assets is nametag.png. I'm running in Visual Studio Code, I'm running an extension called Luna Paint, which lets me edit the image inline. I can do drawing and stuff or erasing those lines. If you don't want to use this, you can also use any image editor. You just need to save it as a 128 by 64 image. It's black and white and it's a PNG. I'm going to go ahead and just drag another image in my assets folder. On my nametag.png, I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to rename this file to nametag.png. And then that should be it. Make sure that QFlipper's not running. Open up app.c, Control-Shift-B, and then launch app on Flipper. Okay, and we'll go down to FlipBoard again, and there's our new name tag. And then if we look at the code in app.c, when we scroll down, you'll see that this is where it's drawing it. It does a canvas draw icon, canvas at location 11. It's ampersand capital I underscore for an icon in the assets folder, and then name tag for name tag PNG. Okay, next we want to swap out the colors. So when you switch effects, it tells you which effect you're on. And so I usually use effect 2, and this is the one that has one color that's bouncing with a different color as the background. Okay, so I've opened app.c in FlipBlinky, and we're going to scroll down until we get to this FlipBoard reset effect, and you'll see these different cases. And the one we were talking about was case number 2. And case 2 sets the fill color as index 4, and then the highlight color as index 5. So we're going to go ahead and change that highlight color to, I'm just going to type it in hex, so 0x107C10 is supposedly Xbox green. With these lights, it's a little bit challenging to actually get a good color match, but I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then we're going to make sure that QFlipper's not running and the app's not running. Control-Shift-B, and then launch app on Flipper. Okay, and our app goes, so we'll go to FlipBlinky and launch that. And there's our new Xbox green light bouncing around. Okay, so now that we're happy with that code, we can go ahead and copy that color to the clipboard, right click on the LED color violet, the line above, and say go to definition. And then we can add a new entry at the bottom, LED color Xbox green, and put in our hex value and a comma. Go ahead and save that. And then back in our app.c, instead of hard coding, we should now be able to say LED color Xbox green. So next, I wanted to talk about the existing effects in the FlipBlinky app. We currently have max effect ID set to 6. If you add more effects, you're going to want to increase this number. We saw in reset effect, this happens every time you switch from one effect to the next. This gets called, and it gets past that effect ID of the number between 1 and that maximum. For 1, we're actually trying to turn off the lights. So we set all of the lights to black, and then we do an update. For case 2, this is the one where the one light is going back and forth, and then all the rest are filled in with this color. Instead of setting the colors, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, this is our index for our lights, we're using additional indexes of 4 and 5. This is just temporary holders that we can use. If you right click on colors and say go to definition, you'll see that this is currently defined as 6. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're only using 0, 1, 2, and 3 for the lights. So the rest are used for temporary space. This effects counter is basically reset to 0. And this is not the effects ID. The effects ID is which effect you're on. The counter is within that effect, where are you? So which frame are you, kind of in the animation concept. For case 3, it's just random colors that we pick. So we don't bother to set the colors here in the effect. We actually will do the setting. And then case 4, 5, and 6, set the lights to some colors. And then those colors we're all just going to scroll. And then in do effect, this is where we actually do that animation using those colors that were set. In case 1, all the lights are off, so there's no work to do, so we just return. In case 2, what we're going to do is for all 4 colors, so between 0 and then I is less than 4, so 0, 1, 2, and 3, we're going to set that to whatever's in our colors at index 4 spot. So all the lights are going to set to this fill color. And then once we've done that, then based on the effect counter, which started off at 0, we're going to go into the color at that index and set it to whatever's in color 5. And you'll recall color 5 is our second color. And then once we get, that's going to be 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then when we're at a value of 4 or 5, what's going to happen is we're going to go 6 minus 4, which is 2, or 6 minus 5, which is 1. And so this is going to handle our 0, 1, 2, 3. And then this is going to give us 2, 1. And in these cases, it's also going to set to that color. And then here we're incrementing which effect counter we're at. So we started at 0. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we go to 6. And when we're at 6, we say if it's greater or equal to 6, put it back to 0. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is, again, 0, 1, 2, and 3 are here. And 4, 5 are handled here using 6 minus that number, giving us the third and second light to kind of make that bouncing back and forth effect. Hopefully that makes sense. In case 3, we have just 4 lights all getting assigned to random colors. So for 0 through less than 4, so 0, 1, 2, and 3 is our I value, which we're going to use here. And our red, our green, and our blue are all assigned a random number. And then we take that random number, we divide it by 256, and we take the remainder. So we get a value between 0 and 255 to set for our red, our green, and our blue. So we have 3 random numbers. And then this is the operator to combine those back into a color. So you take that red and you shift it 16 bits to the left. That's where the red goes. And then 8 bits shifted is where the green, and then the blue stays at the lowest 8 bits. So that's how we get back a color, is this shifting operator. And there's our red, our green, and our blue. So every time, for every frame, we randomly will grab colors. And then by default, for all the other cases where we haven't talked about, we're going to grab whatever's in that first color and put it in a temporary variable. And then each light is going to grab the color that was to the right of it and copy it into itself. And then the last light is going to grab the color that was in temp, which was what was in the very first light. And so this is going to have that kind of scrolling effect that we see for most of the effects. And then finally, once we've done all those effects, we set our 4 LEDs at 0, 1, 2, and 3, LED ID 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then when we call update, this is when the lights actually change. So all these sets don't actually do anything. Changing these indexes don't actually do anything. It's when you call update that the lights change. So nobody sees all the manipulation that's happening between those frames. Okay, so next for a simple effect, we're going to go ahead and we'll add a new effect. So we'll change this to 7. And then we'll just copy this case 6, but this time we'll call it case 7. And then here we're going to do control space and choose our own colors that we want. And there we go. And then we can save that, make sure QFlipper's not running and the app's not running. Control Shift B, and then launch app on Flipper. Okay, and then we're going to go down to FlipBlinky and go ahead and effect 3. You can see it's of 7 now. And here's our new effects with our colors. Okay, and the last thing we wanted to do was try to make an animated image instead. Animated image is going to be kind of complicated, but we'll go ahead and give it a try. So the first thing we're going to want to do is in our assets, we're going to want to make a folder. So go ahead and right click and say new folder, and then name your asset. So I'm going to go ahead and name it Talking Sasquatch. And then next in here, you're going to drop all of your animation frames, which should be named frame underscore 00.png through frame underscore however many frames you have. So I'm going to go ahead and drag those in. So there's like frame 0. Here's frame 8, etc. And then next you're going to go ahead and create a file called frame underscore rate. And in there, you're just going to put the number of how many frames a second we want. So I'm going to just put 2 and hit save. And then I'm going to do Control Shift B, launch app on Flipper. And that's going to go ahead and compile this and make sure that everything's working fine. Okay, and it compiled just fine. So next in our app.c, we're going to go down into our FlipBoard view draw code. And you remember that before we were doing canvas draw icon with our name tag. And now instead we want to do canvas draw icon animation. I'll just go ahead and copy some code right down here. And then I'll comment out this line. So I'm commenting it out that we're no longer going to do the draw icon. And instead we're going to do, if the FlipBoard Blinky model has an icon animation set, we're going to draw that icon animation. And I'm going to set this index to 0, 0, because I think that's the upper left. And we're seeing that it's saying it doesn't know what icon animation is. So we'll have to right click on FlipBoard Blinky model, go to definition. And in here, we're going to have to add a definition for that. So icon animation is a pointer with icon animation. Save that file. Come back here. Okay, so now it knows what icon animation is, but our code hasn't set it to anything. So this isn't going to start animating. So next we need to go down into when our FlipBoard starts rendering and have it set our icon animation. So I'm going to scroll down. And here's our enter callback. And this is where we get our models and we start a timer and we're doing our GUI refreshes twice a second. Okay, so below that, I'm going to go ahead and paste some code, which is we're going to take our icon animation and it equals icon animation alloc. And then we have an ampersand a underscore. So this is animation, which is going to look in our assets folder for animations. And then this is the name of the folder. So Talking Sasquatch, and that's the only animation we currently have in our assets. And then icon animation set update callback. It takes our icon that we want to animate. It's going to call this every time it wants to show a new frame. And it's going to pass us this context, which is the context of our enter, which we're able to use to get our model. And then finally, it's going to call icon animation start and start animating that icon. Now, this icon is already going to be wanting to update our UI 2 frames a second. So we can go ahead and comment out this code that's trying to update our UI. Next, we need to implement this icon animation timer callback. So we'll go ahead and go above our current method, and after that, close curly brace. And we'll name it the same thing here. So icon animation timer callback, icon animation timer callback. It's a void, and it takes an icon animation instance and a void star context. We're not actually using the instance in this method, so we say unused instance. And then we're just doing the same thing as this line here. And I can just copy paste it to show you it's the same line. And then FlipBoard model. So our FlipBoard model, we take our context and ask for our FlipBoard model. And then we're calling update the graphical user interface. So every time the animation wants to update, it's going to call us and tell us it wants to update, and we're going to tell the FlipBoard that we want to update the UI. That'll start updating our image and cycle through all those frames. But then when we get to our exit callback, we're going to want to stop doing that. So let's go ahead and paste this code. So icon animation stop, and we'll pass in our icon animation. And then free to release the icon animation. And then we'll set it back to null. And then again, when you go, this is when you call exit. And then if you come back in and do enter, we'll reallocate a new one here. So that should be good at this point. Let's go ahead and save everything. Make sure QFlipper's not running. Control-Shift-B, launch app on Flipper. Okay, and we'll go down to FlipBoard Blinky, and hopefully, there we go. Now we have our animation running. We're using all of the frames. So if you didn't want all of the frames, you could delete some of those frames from the PNG. These images should be 128 by 64 black and white. And again, we could change that frame rate if we need to have a different speed. All right, so now you've learned how we can change the image. We've learned how we can add an animated image. We've learned how to add new colors like the Xbox green, and how to create our own animation sequence colors as well. I'll put some link to some code for how to do a fade effect, which is also a nice thing that you could add as like a case number 8. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, post a comment below or in the Discord server. Thanks a lot.